little example from my own life. I was, for quite a few years, I was counseling individuals and giving small talks for a number of years, spiritual talks. And I would write down, often after giving a talk or after a counseling session, I would take notes and write down what I had said during those sessions. It often happened that I said things in counseling sessions with individuals or in very small groups. I said things very often that I didn't know beforehand. It only came to me in the moment because it came from the depths of my being. They were intuitive realizations that came out of the present moment, and they only came because the question was asked. Somebody asked the question, or somebody had a problem, and so an answer came. And then later, of course, I didn't know it. I knew these things, so I wrote it down afterwards. So writing's kind of notes accumulated over the years, and then at some point I realized there's a book that's going to be written, but I also knew the notes themselves are not the book yet, but I had the sense that a book was wanting to be written, wanting to be born into this world, and that sense was halfway between having a vision of something that is almost inevitable and desiring something to happen. It was halfway in between. So when I wrote down there is a book, I knew I never used the future tense, as you must not in any manifestation. There is a book that will change the lives of millions of people and bring consciousness to the planet, and I wrote that down. And that was, as I said, it's hard to describe, but the only way I can put it was halfway between writing down something that I already knew for sure, because it is a vision that had already some reality on some level, and halfway between that and between wanting something to manifest. So the wanting it to manifest it and seeing it already as manifest, it was this kind of became a single thing. And perhaps that is the most powerful way of manifesting, when you have the feeling that what it is that you want to manifest actually already exists not in the physical universe, but on another level. So I knew this book already existed. And the writing down of this affirmation was only just a reflection of what I already knew. This book already exists, and that I'm writing it down. There it is. I drew a little circle on the paper. In the middle of the circle, there's the book. I don't think I didn't have the title for it yet. And then I knew. Then I said, now what comes out of that? Out of that comes this one line that says, I give talks all over the world, and thousands of people come. I knew that. And that again was not so much that I wanted it to happen. It was almost knowing that it would happen. It was almost like predicting the future rather than wanting to create the future, or halfway in between. There's a book, there's traveling, I give talks, and then there's another book I think I wrote, and there are various other things that I wrote down. I also wrote down that my life circumstances are more pleasant, and there is financial abundance, so I'm not worried. I was not really worried about money, and I lived on very little for many years, and I was quite happy. But my preference would be to have more abundance in my life, and through this I said more abundance is coming into my life, and a very pleasant living situation. And there were a few other things associated with the central thing, and those things I've focused on for I don't know how long, maybe several weeks, and then I put it aside, and then a few more weeks focused on it every day. I think it's on my wall somewhere, and focused on it. And then I moved many times this piece of paper got forgotten, it got somewhere to my paper, and 2-3 years passed, and I actually completely forgot that I had written this piece of paper. And then various things happened, and I've suddenly, without going into detail, the energy stream came within me. And the book suddenly started to be written through me. I used a little bit of some of the notes that I had written, but they were not the book. The book was an empowered energy stream. Oh yes, that came maybe 3 years after doing this piece of paper, vision board, they call it sometimes, or something like that. I realized, well, not that much is happening yet. I'm still doing these very small scale. I'm helping a small number of people, and that's good. But I knew I could help so many more. But why isn't it's not happening yet? And then there's one further affirmation I did, and I only did it for 1 day, I think, or 2 days. I went into a church in a small village church in Somerset in England, where the county where I was living at the time. And this empty church, I sat there and I looked at the symbols, and I just, in the stillness, I said, I actually asked for something. That's strange. One shouldn't normally ask for things, but all I asked for is acceleration. I said, I'm asking for acceleration. I knew it was happening, but it was too slow. I said, I'm asking for acceleration, please. And I could feel it had been received, and I could feel somehow I could feel the reality of acceleration within myself already. And soon after that, everything started to change in my life. I had to move away from where I was living. I had an internal impulse to move away. I had to sell everything. I had to move to the west coast of North America, and there suddenly the book came out, and then everything got accelerated. And now let's go forward a few more years. The Power of Now is out. It has reached millions of people. Oh yes, I'd also written down in this original paper, translated into don't know how many languages. All that was there. I'd even colored it. I remember there were red colors and blue, the center was like the sun, emanating various things. And so forward a few years, The Power of Now was out. It was already a bestseller, been translated into many languages. Oprah had discovered it. Had financial abundance. All those things were there. I was unpacking my things. A trunk was coming from England, where some of my things had been stored, and I was going through my old papers. And at that point, I saw this old paper that I had written many years before, this thing that I described, and I read it. And, oh my God, it's all happened. I forgot that I had written all this completely. And that it was all already written down, and it all came to pass. How amazing. I was kind of speechless. So that's more or less the story of how it happened.